Hello friends, welcome back to Zhengguandi and I'm Jen Fei. Yesterday, a US Air Force F-15E Strike Eagle was hit by a missile over Iranian airspace. This is the first manned US military aircraft to be shot down by Iran since the start of Operation Epic Wrath 5 weeks ago. The 2 crew members on board ejected, the pilot has already been rescued, but the weapons systems officer is still missing. If he is still alive, he probably only has a radio with a battery that's about to run out, a few signal flares that can only be seen with night vision, and no more than 3 days worth of water. The search and rescue operation has entered its second day, and multiple US rescue aircraft have come under attack, with several people injured. And what about Iran? After the incident, they quickly released photos of the ejection seat. The national television station has been repeatedly broadcasting a missing person notice near the ejection site. The governor of a province in southwestern Iran even publicly offered a reward, mobilizing locals to search for and capture the US pilot alive, with a reward of $60,000. According to the latest news today, Iranian officials have denied finding the pilot. Right now, the United States and Iran are engaged in a race against time to find him. I believe that countless friends who are following this war just like me are anxiously and closely watching how this situation develops, and are also praying that this pilot can be rescued safely and smoothly. However, whether he can be rescued is closely related to the training he has received and his survival guidelines. So today, let's talk about what the US military would do if they were unfortunate enough to fall behind enemy lines, what survival rules they follow, what equipment they have, what the golden window for rescue is, and whether there have been successful or failed rescue cases in history. I promise you, today's program will be absolutely fascinating. Whether you believe it or not, just give me 20 minutes of your time. Let's start with the most basic question. The moment a US fighter pilot ejects, what does he have with him? Many people think that ejection simply means the person is launched out, then the parachute opens and they land safely, just waiting for someone to come rescue them. Actually, that's not the case. The US military has spent decades turning every inch of space on a pilot's body into a miniature survival system. So what does this system consist of? It has 2 main levels. The first level is the survival kit located under the ejection seat, which in English is called the seat survival kit. The F-15 uses the ACES-2 ejection seat, which stands for Advanced Concept Ejection Seat. Underneath the seat, there is a pack weighing about 22 pounds, and when ejection occurs, this pack is ejected together with the pilot. It's strapped to them with shoulder and leg straps, and until the parachute opens and the pilot separates from the seat, this pack stays with them. In other words, when they land, the pack is still there. What's inside the pack? The most crucial items are the radio and positioning devices. It's equipped with a PRC-12 personal rescue radio, which isn't much bigger than a walkie-talkie and comes with GPS. Through this emergency channel, it can send location signals and voice messages. However, the battery life is only 7 hours. Pay attention to these 7 hours, as we'll mention this again later. There's also something called an URT-33 personal emergency beacon. This beacon has a very important design detail. It can be set manually. Why is that? Because if you start broadcasting the signal as soon as you land behind enemy lines, the enemy's radio monitoring equipment could quickly pinpoint your location, possibly much faster than your own people could. Therefore, you must decide for yourself when to turn this signal on and when to turn it off. As for weapons, traditionally it's an M9 Beretta pistol, 9mm, but you have to understand, what can a pistol really do behind enemy lines? Honestly, not much, because it's just too weak. So in 2018, the US Air Force officially equipped something called the GAU-5A, whose full name is the Aircrew Self-Defense Weapon. This thing completely changed pilots' ability to defend themselves after landing. Because you have to understand that the cockpit space in a fighter jet is extremely limited, and the survival kit under the ejection seat is even more precious in terms of space. While a pistol can fit in there, a pistol is simply not on the same level as a rifle in combat. If only we could shrink a rifle down small enough to fit into the survival kit under the ejection seat, that would be ideal. So, the US military came up with a solution. They modified the barrel of the M4 carbine to make it a quick detach version, using a quick release system for the barrel. The entire rifle can be disassembled in just a few seconds, and after folding, its dimensions are 16 by 14 by 3.5 inches, about the size of a small backpack. After landing, the pilot can assemble the rifle within 30 seconds. The pilot of the F-105E that was shot down yesterday theoretically should have had this rifle in his ejection kit. In addition to communications and weapons, there are also signaling devices, including a signal mirror, signal flares, and a strobe light equipped with an infrared filter. This design is quite special. Only friendly forces with night vision goggles can see it, while the enemy cannot see it at all with the naked eye. So these are the first layer of survival kits located beneath their ejection seats. The second layer of the system consists of the personal gear they carry. This part is more flexible and can be customized by the pilots themselves. For example, those scenes in movies where pilots take out a photo of their wife and children and kiss it. That photo is probably hidden in this second layer. So this entire set of equipment is very comprehensive, but they all share one common and fatal limitation. That is, the battery for the time radio, as we just mentioned, only lasts for 7 hours, and the water purification tablets for survival can only sustain you for a few days. There are also only a few signal flares, and the rations last at most 3 days. All of these preparations serve just one purpose, not to enable long-term survival. Instead, it is to help him hold out until the rescue plane arrives during that time window. So how long is this window? In the US military's combat search and rescue system, there is an unwritten consensus. The first 72 hours are the golden period, and after that, with every passing 24 hours, the chances of survival decrease. This time frame is not the physiological limit of the human body, but the tactical limit, because once a pilot falls behind enemy lines, another battle begins. The enemy's first reaction is always to immediately capture him and take him prisoner. An American pilot is a bargaining chip, propaganda material, and more importantly, a source of intelligence. So for Iran, this value is immeasurable. And for a US pilot who has fallen behind enemy lines, at this point he can only rely on himself. At this moment, not getting caught by the enemy means that the US military's SERE training becomes the line between life and death for him. SERE stands for survival, evasion, resistance, and escape. This intensive course is widely recognized as one of the most rigorous and strictest survival training programs found anywhere in the US military. Consequently, every single fighter pilot is required to successfully complete this grueling training before they are permitted to go into active combat. One of the core principles of this training is not to turn on your radio immediately after landing. Why? As we mentioned earlier, because the enemy's radio monitoring equipment can pinpoint the source of a signal. The moment you turn it on, your location is exposed. So the correct approach is to move first, find a high position with cover, and then wait for a specific time. The window is usually to briefly turn on the radio and send a signal during the first few minutes of every hour, then immediately turn it off, move to the next location, and send the signal again. In other words, every single time you turn on the radio, it's essentially a massive gamble. Just today, a highly decorated and retired US Special Forces officer stated on CNN that these rescue operations are extremely dangerous and incredibly complex. And they are absolutely nothing like what you typically see portrayed on TV. He believes that the US military will carry out the rescue at night because Americans can see better than anyone else in the dark. But he immediately added, the problem is that the pilot himself also has to move in the darkness, and that's not always an easy thing to do. So that's what he meant. The pilot has to keep moving and continue sending signals. As soon as the US military detects a signal, they can extract the personnel within 2 hours. Because the modern concept of combat search and rescue is to deploy in advance, before fighter jets carry out their missions, search and rescue assets, some aircraft and certain equipment, are already on standby somewhere in the combat zone. Yesterday's reports also confirmed this point. After the plane was shot down, US search and rescue assets appeared in Iranian airspace in a very short time, a retired pilot told military.com. Like the officer just mentioned, he also believes that the US military would most likely wait until nightfall to carry out the personnel extraction because nighttime operations can maximize the advantages of infrared and night vision equipment, while also reducing the chances of being hit by air defense fire. At this point, some of you might be wondering, didn't the US claim long ago that it had already achieved complete air superiority over Iranian airspace? So how could they still encounter fire from Iran's air defense systems? As for this question, let's hold off for a moment, we'll get to it later. Before that, let's return to the American pilot who fell behind enemy lines. The search and rescue operation has entered its second day, and for him, every passing minute from now on is crucial. It's a matter of life and death with every moment. Has there ever been a similar situation before where US troops fell behind enemy lines? What would they experience? How were they successfully rescued? Or how did they end up being captured by the enemy? On June 2, 1995, US Air Force Captain Scott O'Grady, call sign Basher 52, was flying a NATO no-fly zone patrol mission over Bosnia. He was piloting an F-16, flying in a 2-aircraft formation with another pilot, Bob Wright. They knew that along the route, they would encounter fixed anti-aircraft missile sites. But what they didn't know was that right before this mission, the Serbian forces had brought in a mobile SA-6 missile launcher and had set up a trap. The Serbian forces here were the armed forces controlled by the Serbian side during the Bosnian War. At that time, they controlled vast territories and had inherited a large amount of anti-aircraft equipment from the former Yugoslav army. The Serbs were very cunning. They didn't keep their radar on all the time. Instead, they would turn the radar on intermittently for short periods. This way, the F-16's warning system didn't have enough time to fully lock onto the source of the threat. By the time the aircraft was directly overhead, right in the missile's most effective range, the radar would activate. They only opened fire when the aircraft had the least room to maneuver. 2 missiles were launched. The first exploded between O'Grady's and Wright's planes, and the second directly hit O'Grady's F-16. Wright saw O'Grady's plane break into 2 pieces in midair, burning as it fell. He didn't see a parachute and thought O'Grady was dead, but at the last moment O'Grady managed to eject and survived. Before we continue with this thrilling story, I'd like to share with you a health supplement, Red Sea Cucumber Gel from Jeju Island, South Korea. I've always recommended it for 2 reasons. First, I know the nutritional value of sea cucumbers myself, and I'm someone who consistently eats sea cucumbers. However, as anyone who has prepared sea cucumbers knows, it's actually quite a hassle to make. But this product is very convenient because it's made into small strips, making it easy for us to supplement sea cucumber nutrition in our daily lives. It's extremely convenient to consume. Secondly, we've received so much positive feedback about this product. Let me share 2 real cases with you. The first one is from Ms. V in California. She is 57 years old and has joint problems. She has been taking red sea cucumber supplements for over 2 months now, and she says she really feels the effects. Now, when she walks or goes up and down stairs every day, she feels very relaxed and comfortable. She even wrote a letter to express her gratitude, saying that she will definitely continue taking this product. The second case is Ms. Song, a 73-year-old from Miami. She has had high blood pressure for many years, but after taking red sea cucumber for a period of time, she clearly felt that she no longer felt dizzy during the day, and she also slept very soundly at night. She feels much more comfortable and relaxed overall, and she has truly experienced this change. That's why she now actively recommends this product to her friends and family. We have truly received a lot of feedback like this. Of course, these are all individual experiences and not everyone will necessarily have the same feelings, but there is no doubt that this is an excellent product. So, for those who are interested, I suggest you buy a box to try it out first. You might soon experience changes in your body just like they did. If you're interested, you can now click the pinned link in the comment section below the video. Don't forget to enter my discount code, which is GenFei in Pinyin at checkout to get a 15% discount. Let's get back to the story. In the end, O'Grady successfully ejected, and it took him more than 25 minutes to reach the ground. During his descent, he even saw Serbian military personnel on the ground chasing after his parachute because the color of his parachute was just too conspicuous. The moment he landed, he immediately tore off his parachute, grabbed his survival gear, and dashed into the woods. The people searching for him right behind him were a man and a boy. At their closest, they were only 6 feet away from where he landed. 6 feet, that's less than 2 meters, but they still didn't find him. He hid in the woods, and the next 6 days became an extreme case study of human willpower and training. During the first 2 days, the Serbs' search was extremely intense. Helicopters circled overhead at such a low altitude that he could clearly see the faces of the pilots inside the cockpit. And what about the soldiers on the ground? They fired at anything that moved. Some even poked the bushes near his hiding spot with rifle butts, trying to force him out. At the closest point, the searchers were only a few feet away from him. He didn't dare move at all, lying face down in the mud, even thinking his heavy breathing was too loud. During the day, he didn't move an inch. Only after nightfall did he change his position. His water had already run out by the 4th day. He started eating ants, leaves, and grass, using a sponge to collect rainwater and store it in plastic bags. There was plenty of rain in Bosnia in June, so he wouldn't die of thirst. However, the rain also soaked him to the bone, and his feet became macerated. Most importantly, he barely turned on his radio during the first 3 days. This decision ultimately saved his life because he kept it off. The Serbs' radio monitoring equipment couldn't pick up any signals. The search went on for several days, but they found nothing, no signals at all. The Serbs began to suspect that he was already dead since the plane had broken in 2 in midair. As a result, the intensity of the Serbs' search and rescue efforts gradually decreased. Then, at 2:08 a.m. on the 6th night, O'Grady finally turned on his radio. His comrade, Captain Hanford, happened to be patrolling nearby and heard a voice come through on the radio. "This is Basher 5-2. I'm alive. I need help." It took only 12 minutes from confirming his identity to launching the rescue operation. From finalizing the rescue plan to the helicopter taking off, it took less than 3 hours. 6 minutes before dawn, 2 American CH-53 Echo Super Stallion transport helicopters landed just 50 yards away from him. 40 aircraft provided cover in the air. O'Grady dashed out from the woods, and the Marines formed a protective circle around him. The helicopters quickly took off, and during the evacuation, they came under fire from Serbian ground forces and anti-aircraft missiles. But they made it out. The entire rescue operation took only 2 hours and 5 minutes. O'Grady's story is a case of a successful escape, but most cases in history point in another direction, being captured. In the 1991 Gulf War, during Operation Desert Storm, a total of 23 Allied pilots were captured by Iraq. The most shocking case was that of Navy Lieutenant Jeffrey Zorn. On January 17, 1991, the first day of the war, Zorn, serving as the weapons systems officer on an A-6E attack aircraft, carried out a mission to bomb an Iraqi Air Force base together with pilot Bob Wetzel. Their plane was hit by anti-aircraft fire, and after both ejected, they were captured. 3 days later, Zorn appeared on Iraqi television. That footage became one of the most iconic images of the Gulf War. Zorn's face was severely swollen, covered in blood, and his eyes were bruised, clear signs of violence. He was forced to read an anti-war statement on camera. Zorn later recalled that on the very first day of his capture, he was beaten. He was held in the basement of the secret police headquarters in Baghdad. He endured 46 days of interrogation, beatings, and repeated threats of execution. After 46 days, Zorn was released. He had lost 30 pounds but eventually recovered physically. Wetzel, whose arms were both broken during ejection, was also released on the same day. Zorn later retired from the Navy, earned an MBA from Wharton, and became a financial analyst on Wall Street. But his face, that swollen and bruised face shown on Iraqi television, was forever frozen in time in 1991, serving as the most immediate propaganda use for a captured American pilot. In this story, however, there is also a heartwarming detail. It was also an unexpected twist. When the American soldiers Zorn and Wetzel were first captured, the ones who took charge of them were not the secret police, but rather the commander of the Air Force base, an Iraqi Air Force Major General named Rais Munir. At that time, Munir did something that, from a battlefield perspective, was extremely rare. He protected these two men. At that time, the Saddam government offered rewards to civilians who handed over enemy prisoners of war. So there were some Iraqi soldiers at the base who wanted to turn these pilots over to the locals for money. Even one of Saddam's cousins pressured Munir. However, Munir refused. He used his own private vehicle to take the 2 American pilots to Baghdad, but once they arrived in Baghdad, the situation changed. After the secret police took over, the beatings began. But you should know, 20 years later, when Munir fled Iraq and came to the United States to seek asylum, guess who helped him write his application materials and letters of recommendation? It was Zorn and Wetzel. After telling these stories, finally, let's talk about a question that many people find puzzling. Didn't the US military claim long ago that they had already secured air superiority? Trump said that 100% of Iran's radars had been destroyed, and the Secretary of Defense also said they had uncontested control of the airspace. So how did the US military's F-15 still get shot down? And why were the rescue aircraft repeatedly attacked during this period as well? The reason for this, to put it in the simplest terms, is that air superiority is not like a switch. You can't just flip it on and be 100% safe. You might destroy 90% of the enemy's air defense systems, but if the remaining 10% are mobile, hidden under bridges, and able to relocate at any time, then it's like playing a game of whack-a-mole. You never know when or where they might pop up. For example, Iran's mobile air defense missile launchers can shut off their radar and go into silent standby mode. When a US military plane flies overhead, they suddenly power up, launch a missile, and then immediately move to another location. This tactic is exactly the same as the one used by the Serbs in 1995 to shoot down O'Grady. In addition, the latest intelligence assessment also shows that after 5 weeks of fighting, Iran still has about half of its missile launchers intact, over 200 units. If even just a few of these more than 200 launchers slip through, there's a very real chance they could shoot down an aircraft at some point. So air superiority does not mean zero risk, and that's exactly why search and rescue missions themselves are full of danger. For example, the rescue aircraft the US military has sent out now, a 10S have been hit, helicopters have been hit, and crew members have been injured. The planes sent to rescue one person could themselves become the next ones needing to be rescued. But they still went. This is the US military's principle of never abandoning anyone, leave no one behind. This precious principle is not just a slogan. Every person who sits in the cockpit of a fighter jet knows that if I get shot down, my comrades will come to rescue me. This belief is one of the greatest sources of support that gives pilots the courage to fly into anti-aircraft fire. O'Grady survived for 6 days without giving up because he knew the US military would come to rescue him. Zahn endured 46 days in a basement without breaking down because he knew it wouldn't last forever, because they are Americans. If that person is still alive at this moment and he is the only one left, I believe it is the same belief that sustains him. Let us pray together and hope that he can be rescued safely and soon. Alright, if you feel that today's episode has taught you something you didn't know before, please give me a like and share it with friends who might be interested. If you haven't subscribed to True Perspective yet, please click subscribe and turn on the notification bell for future updates. Let's keep watching together. By the way, regarding the 3 near-death crises in NATO's 77-year history that I mentioned at the end of the last episode, we'll have to postpone that for a bit. This current event is quite important, and I think everyone will enjoy this kind of content more. So we'll air that episode next week. Tomorrow, I'll bring you a mysterious interview, and we'll also release the 5th episode of our Mysterious Iran series. After the period of nationwide mandatory Shia Islam, a king emerged who wanted to restore Iran to the glory of ancient Persia. How did he turn this dream into reality, and how was it ultimately destroyed? The twists and turns in Iran's history are truly moving and thought-provoking. Join our Disputed Viewpoints membership, and at the same time tomorrow, 7 p.m. Beijing time, we'll see you there.
You say the world is vast and you want to go see it. You bravely fulfilled the dreams of your youth. From the bunk on the high-speed train to the light of the southern hemisphere, you stumbled along the way, but stayed stubborn throughout. All you wanted was to make a home in the palace. Outside the door of tragedy, it's so awkward. You grit your teeth and swallow all your grievances, then turn back and tell your mom. Only then do I look up and see the evening glow. You speak the truth, but not sharply. Yet it becomes a weapon that can dispel the darkness in people's hearts. You say your favorite is the sunflower, always growing toward the light. And you can explain hot topics with reason. You make the complicated world clear and understandable. Fly on, keep flying. Move toward the sun, journeying through wind and rain. You love the starry sky, and you love to smile. Lizzie hides the universe in the name of a needle's tip. You say language is just a coincidence, that there's no need to fear grammar or accents. You study English, practicing in front of the mirror, cheering yourself on and giving courage to others as well. Even though reality is often unreasonable, you still leave kindness here. You speak the truth, but not sharply. Yet it becomes a weapon that can cleanse people's hearts. You say your favorite is the sunflower, always growing toward the light. You can explain trending topics with reason and make complicated matters clear. Zhenfei, keep flying. Move toward the sun like a sheep. Press on through wind and rain. If one day you feel too tired, your fans are willing to carry the burden with you. You also have such an excellent team. Take a short break and come back fully recharged. You say thank you, but it feels too light, too light. Then let this song remember for you. Zhenfei, keep flying. Move toward the sun. Press on through wind and rain.